As much as I didn't want to make this video, let's talk about Greenville. Hey guys, Otaku here, back with another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video, and 2025 is not off to a great start. So for those who have been here on the channel for a while, or if you're just tuning in, I have yet to actually top or even get my invite. For reference, I did only start competitive Yu-Gi-Oh during the POTE format, so when Tier Limit was fresh off the press, and since then I have made a significant amount of improvement as a player. So this past weekend I went to Greenville, South Carolina for the first regional of 2025, and the last regional before YCS Orlando. Despite the fact that this is my first competitive event since Crossover Breakers came out, I went into it very confident simply because I was playing Malice. However, I went in a little too cocky because I got bodied, and I didn't really want to make this video, to be honest, simply because there wasn't a lot to talk about, but you all voted on the community page that you wanted to see this video, so I figured we might as well just kind of look at the list and overall just talk about a lot of the stuff I learned and even go over some of the games. Just to get it out of the way, there was a 9-person regional, top 42 or 48 got invite. I ended up dropping by round 6. And we were not off on a good start because round 1, I got fucking bodied. Round 1 was against the best deck in the format, which was Ryzeal Fiendsmith. And sure enough, we're off to a pretty bad start. I opened 2 Lebellion, an MTP, an Ogre, and a Crossout. But I'm going first. Lovely. I end up using Lebellion, searching out a Magnemite. I end up summoning the Magnemite by banishing Lebellion from the graveyard. Activate Magnemite, of course, to search on end phase. And then, for some reason, I don't use the Lebellion to tribute Magnemite to get regained on the board, so I can hopefully, be able to draw on my opponent's turn. I just didn't do that. Instead, I end up setting the MTP in the cross out and passing my opponent. On end phase, I end up adding Druis Worm, and my opponent must have somewhat bricked as well because that board was enough. He ends up starting with the Fiendsmith stuff, of course, getting Lacrima on the board, and then he ends up trying to use the Engraver. I banish it with Druis Worm, and then he ends up going for Duo Drive, and I destroy it with Ogre. He ends up ending his board essentially on just a Lacrima with Requiem equipped. This was pretty much a free game. In the end phase, I end up searching out the Dormouse, and like I said, this was free, and I still dropped it. Somewhere in the combo, I had Druis Worm and I had Ransom on board. If I just linked them away and went for access code and then access code banished the Ransom, we had just full game right there, and I ended up dropping it. I ended up leaving my opponent with 200 life points, and sure enough, he just kind of cracked back and killed me. I dropped it. Game 2, once again, I choked, and there's nothing really to highlight here. I had full combo. I played through 3 different hand traps, and then I ended up taking a weird line where I ended up going into Little Knight rather than Splash Mage because I just didn't want to lock myself, and it ended up putting me on a very suboptimal board that didn't do much. He just played through it and killed me. I did, however, in this duel learn that the Agnum Day, when it's equipped to Desiree, gives Desiree piercing. I thought I was going to survive. Nope, did not survive. Round 2, my opponent wins the die roll, and he's just summoning cash cards. For the most part, I thought he was just on cash because he ends on just like Unicorn Birth with the field spell in one set, and he passes. I just end up killing him. I play through it and I kill him. He has no hand traps. He ends up scooping like mid-combo, essentially. We get to game 2. He chooses to go first, and he's on Fiendsmith Kashtira with a bit of a twist. I open like 3 hand traps. I end up stopping him for the most part. I'm very aware of where we are in the current combo, the current game state, until he normal summons Amadorn Archosaur, and then immediately I'm confused. Sure enough, he's playing a dinosaur package, which would explain why he had no hand traps when I was playing through his board, because he's filling up all those slots with dinosaur cards. And funny enough, he kind of cooked. Unfortunately for him, I was able to kind of somewhat dismantle his board, and all he had to do was use the Ultimate Conductor to flip my stuff face down, and he would have been able to play. I had Baldrake on the board with a Magnemite and Regained. He ends up using all of his monsters to summon Promethean Princess so he can revive an Evolsar, and I just end up banishing with Baldrake. All he had to do was use Conductor to put Baldrake face down, and he probably had that game, but I misplayed round 1. I deserved a bit of a bone, if I have to say, but no, like I said, game 2, he had the opportunity to win that, and he just unfortunately fumbled. But overall, I was intrigued when he normal summoned the Amadorn Archosaur. Turn got back to me. I end up top decking the Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, and he scoops the moment I summon it. So On to round 3. Round 3 is essentially when I officially lost this regional. I go into this pretty confident. I'm 1-1, no big deal, you know, like still the ability to top until I learn what I'm going up against. I end up losing the die roll. My opponent sets 3 and normal summons Pachycephalo, and I know I'm in for a wild ride. Sure enough, I'm playing against One Bad Day, and sure enough, I had a very bad day. Game 1, I just ended up scooping it. I didn't even try and bother playing through it. I knew that my opening hand was not going to have the ability to play through it, especially when I set a Ghost Ogre and he top decks the Moon Mirror Shield, which essentially just means I'm not playing for the rest of the duel. So we end up going to game 2. I do Malice end board. He can't really play through it because I end up just getting rid of all his resources. I use MTP and Heart's Cryptor to banish 2 sets before it gets back to me. And overall, nothing special here. Game 3, however, I had the opportunity to win this, and I fumbled because I second-guessed myself. The turn goes back and forth a couple of times. I'm somehow surviving. He Lancias me twice, and then to top it off, it gets back to me again, and he Chaos Hunters me. I end up setting TB11, and he has 3 cards on the board, so when it gets back to him and he's about to go for game to kill me, I summon out Heart's Cryptor, which is just enough to not die. He ends up crashing the Chaos Hunter and the Heart's Cryptor. Turn gets back to me. I use Droplet to negate the Pachycephalo that is on board. And from there, I just don't have a whole lot of life points left. I end up just barely missing the mark, and I end up setting Imperm. However, what I ended up doing, and this is what really costed me the game, was I ended up setting Imperm off to the left, and he had a set card in column like 2, the second column closest to the deck, or I guess his extra deck. And if I just set Imperm there, I actually would have won the game, because it ended up being Dogmatica Punishment. However, so I was like, oh, I should put Imperm here. So I end up moving my hand over there, and then I'm like, yeah, I've already just telegraphed that I have Imperm, and I put it back. I shouldn't have second-guessed myself. Just leave it there, because at the end of the day, if he activated Dogmatica Punishment, I just negate the Ecclesia that's on his board, and it's in the same column, so it would negate the Dogmatica Punishment, and I would have won the game from there. But unfortunately, I second-guessed myself. I put it back, and it costed me the game. You live, you learn. I was tilted at this point, which again is why this is essentially where I lost the regional. Round 4, I'm pretty angry. I go into round 4 at X2. I'm just like, I just have to win it out to get my invite. No big deal. And I end up going up against the Ryziel Fiendsmith again, but the twist here is that as I'm about to kill him for game 1, the judge comes over and realizes that my opponent is not at the correct table. So for the last 13 minutes, I have been playing the wrong opponent. My opponent hasn't shown up yet. They give him the game 1 loss. With 2 seconds left on the clock, he shows up. I end up going first for game 2, set up full Malice end board. He has really no way to stop it. He activates Shifter and Draw Phase, and I'm just like, well, I got some bad news for you, and sure enough, I'm on Malice. I end on a pretty, like, meh board, but, like, good enough to stop what I know he's playing because I've met this guy before. I've played him in the past, so I knew he was on Vanquished Soul. Sure enough, he's on Vanquished Soul, and he actually lost the game simply because of his own Shifter. He ends up summoning out Raisin with Stake Your Soul. He used Thrust to search Stake Your Soul because I activated some stuff on his turn. Then proceeds to summon the Raisin summon the Xiaolong, and then he makes Rock, and it's like, Rock effect, target the Raisin Engrave, and I'm like, you can't. He's like, why? I was like, because that Raisin's supposed to be in the banish pile. So he ends up losing to his own Shifter, and I just kill him from there. There's not a whole lot to say. Round 4 was kind of just a blowout meh. I would just say that if he didn't show up, 2 seconds like he did, it was the same result regardless. It is what it is. We go into round 5, and it was the deck that I've been hating on since the ban list. It was Tenpai, but Fiendsmith variant, and not much to talk about here. I got my ass whooped. It's Tenpai. I hate that deck so much. I opened no hand traps for Tenpai. In fact, when I did open hand traps, it was just for Fiendsmith stuff, and then he activates Sengen Summoning, and I lost the game. Not much to talk about there. Let's just go on to the list because I don't even remember what round 6 was. I just remember dropping at round 6. But let's just go ahead and take a look at the list I was running and just overall what I learned about this regional. All right, so the list is a little different from my last Malice Dragon Link video that I was talking about. We have since then included the Lubellion and Regained package just to further expedite the Bestials, but overall also it helps with Chaos Space. Chaos Space can just search Lubellion, and then Lubellion can just go from there. Regain gives a lot of advantage to the deck. If the deck goes uninterrupted and we open Chaos Space, we're drawing like 5 cards on our turn. And Regain also just has some fun little neat interactions with the deck, but also just bodies the mirror. Overall, the deck performed quite fine. I have no complaints with how the deck performed when it was able to actually perform. And a lot of the times I wasn't able to perform was simply because I got one of 2 opening hands. Either I saw only Engine or I saw only hand traps. It was very rare that I saw a mixture of both. And when I did see a mixture of both, I was going up against something where 2 hand traps wasn't enough. But we are playing 12 hand traps, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Droll, 3 Ogre, 3 Imperm. Ogre is kind of like the MVP of the current format. It does stop the duo drive if they don't have cross already available to them. It also just has some like funny interactions with other like cards in the current format. Ogre can kind of just like force out the detonator to detach one more material to protect itself. There are just like some cool interactions. It can also help against the mirror match because if they go like Splash Mage, you just go Ogre and they're down essentially 2 bodies. There's some cool interactions with Ogre. Droll helps against Ryzeal. It also just helps make other decks end boards a little bit less significant. Droll is very good against the Sky Striker version of this deck because they're trying to add all these extra cards and draw cards with like Allure of Darkness. So stopping that is very key. And then obviously Imperm to stop the duo drive. Nib is kind of just here for crossout. Nib obviously is good, but we primarily want it for a crossout target. That's why I run 2 because if I only play 1, I'm always going to open the 1. So as for the dragons, we are running 1 Collapse Serpent, 1 of the 3 main Bestials, Baldrake, Druisworm, Magnemut, the Chaos Dragon Levianeer, 1 of the Wyverburster, and 3 Lubellion, plus the branded Regained. You can run 2 Druisworm. I just have the worst luck that if I play 2 Druisworm, I'm always drawing both Druisworms. But also, Baldrake plus Nibiru essentially just like guarantees you the game. Basically, Nibiru is going to wipe your opponent's board, also give you a light monster, and then Baldrake kind of just guarantees that you are going to prevent your opponent from creating any sort of crackback by being able to banish whatever link or extra deck monster they end up summoning. The only catch, of course, is if it's the mirror match specifically, because then they're like, okay, banish my shit. As for Levianeer, this card's crazy. If you open this or draw into it on your opening turn, you will just be able to rip a card from your opponent's hand, or if you're going second, be able to destroy up to 2 cards on your opponent's field. The black and white dragon are here for not only extra bodies, but also just to be able to end on spheres, which is a very valuable end board piece because it is a link 2, so it'll be able to proc the Meow Mine that we are running. But it is also able to summon out the Quackimero Drago or Bestials. We'll get more into Quackimero Drago here in a little bit. As for the main engine, we are running 1 Chessy Cat, 2 if you really value her. I hate seeing this card in my opening hand these days. She just feels not as valuable as the other 2. We are running 3 Dormouse, 3 White Rabbit. Then we're running 3 of the Field Spell and 1 of each of the trap cards. Like I said, we're running cross out for all of the hand traps that are available to us. We're running 1 talent for cross out, but also if we just open it, it is just, you know, more power essentially. I am running only 1 Signet Mining. We have all of this free extension already available to us in the Bestials. We are drawing like 5 cards on our current turn, so there is a good chance we just see it anyways. Same with like Chaos Space. Obviously it's at 1, so we have to run it at 1, but Chaos Space also helps us just draw another card, helps us get into more stuff. Chaos Space plus any of the Malice names is pretty much just full combo. It's full Malice combo with the ability to end on seals. So this card is also cracked, plus it's a draw. So extra deck, we are running 1 Deceive Worm, 1 Axis Code Talker, 1 Firewall Dragon, 1 of the Neo Tempest Terahertz, 1 Lizardos, 1 Seals, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Lingaribo, 1 Link Decoder, 1 of Hearts Cryptor, 1 Red Ransom, 1 White Binder, 1 Little Knight, 1 Splash Mage, and 1 Striker Dragon. Big things to know here is that Lingaribo during the regional was like a huge MVP. I only went against the mirror match I think once, and I think that was actually round 6 now that I think about it. It's just really good in the mirror match, but also to stop imperm, essentially. There are some combos where you just turn your normal summon into Lingaribo, or you end on Lingaribo, amongst many other cards. The Striker Dragon's just here to link away the first dragon and make the seals. Splash Mage, I summoned a total of twice during the whole regional. The Bestials kind of give you the bodies you need, so you do not have to go into Splash Mage. But also on top of that, just locking yourself is not always just the best case scenario. But overall, we're also not running like Packbit or the Aggregator for the Terahertz, simply just because we don't have the room for it. But it's also just like not super necessary. Side deck, we are running 2 Lancia, 3 Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, 1 Quackmare Drago, 1 of the extra Red Ransom, 3 Forbidden Droplet, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 2 Thrust, and 1 Sanctum, and 1 D-Barrier. The Lancia and Sanctum are here mainly just for the mirror match. I did see a lot of Malice running around at this regional, but also it can just kind of stop some other like weird little offshoot matchups. There was some Rescue Ace running around in the regional, so Lancia stops that. Ryugi, there are people trying to make that work, so Lancia bodies those. Sanctum is just here for a thrust target if we're going first against the mirror match. Thrust is here to search out a multitude of different cards. It can search out Talents, Chaos Space, Silent Mining, any of our trap cards, the Harpy's Feather Duster, just a multitude of things. We are running Quackmare Drago because this card bodies not only the mirror match if we end on seals, but it also just bodies the Ryziel Fiendsmith matchup. It just stops Fiendsmith in its tracks in general, which is a card. I cited this a lot during the regional. I never got to actually summon it, unfortunately, because every time I had the ability to end on seals, I was going first, which means this was not in my deck at the time. But this card is crazy. Everyone could just be like, oh, I'm going to swing over it, but the ideal thing is that you're going to end on typical Malice end board, which means you're going to have the Firewall to bounce their normal summon, or you're just going to have other resources to bounce their normal summon. If you end on Seals plus Terahertz and then Meow Mine and Grave, then you're just bouncing their normal summon. Simple as that. The reason we are running Red Ransom is Kashtira specifically. I respect Kashtira Unicorn too much to allow them to hit the Red Ransom. A couple buddies and I were talking about this, and it was brought to the conclusion that Red Ransom is the better hit off of Kashtira Unicorn because it is essentially 3 bodies of its own. You have it on the board, you link it away, and then you banish it, and it comes back plus another body. So just hitting this with Unicorn hurts a lot. Whereas hitting something like Binder or Hearts of Cryptor can hurt in the long game, but this is like an immediate effect. This hurts a lot because also we get our field spell off of this if we don't open it, so it hurts a lot more. Ghost Spell is simply here just for the mirror match, but also like Fiendsmith stuff. Bell can hit the Engraver or Sequence, although in my personal opinion, if they go Sequence, you're going to want to save your Ghost Bell for Sequence specifically, but especially if you open like Bell plus a Bestial, you just Bestial away the Engraver. But also Bell activate it when they activate their field spell, and like they're down a body. They're probably down a couple bodies if you do that, plus they no longer have their field spell on the board. The biggest regret I have in the entire regional is Forbidden Droplet. I did not side this in once, minus the Packy and Friends or One Bad Day, and I only saw it once during that matchup, but I would have much rather have just seen like Lightning Storm or something along those lines, something to remove Packy from the board rather than just negate it. So yeah, I really wish I just wasn't running this. This was like my biggest regret of the entire regional, was running Forbidden Droplet. So let's real quick talk about some things that I learned throughout the regional. I've already mentioned before, Ghost Ogre is huge this format. I think Ghost Ogre and Ghost Bell are kind of like the MVPs of the whole format. I think they have a lot more value in them than Ash Blossom. Simply because Ghost Ogre can deal with the duo drive, it can deal with some other random interactions. The Ghost Bell can deal with Fiendsmith interactions. It can deal with the Malice interactions. They're both very broad hand traps for this current format. On top of that, Nibiru is very big. Nibiruing at the right time against Malice could very well cook them. Nibiruing the Ryziel matchup, as long as they don't get crossed on the board too soon, is huge, especially if they're playing Fiendsmith, because they're going to want to rush out Fiendsmith stuff before they lock themselves. Cool little interaction that I didn't run into, but my buddy was playing, was that he had Regained on board, and he used Crossout to banish his own Malice name, and then he used Regain to draw a card on his opponent's turn, because he knew that he didn't have any valid targets in his deck to stop something in his opponent's deck. So he used Crossout as a form of drawing a card, essentially, which was really cool. I didn't do it, but I was already dropped out of the regional when my buddy brought it to my attention. But it's a really cool interaction. So if you are running like Regained plus Crossout, something to keep in mind. Like I said, my biggest regret was Forbidden Droplet. I just didn't need this for like the whole regional. But looking back, to take its place, I was talked out of running Shifter for this regional, and my buddy is still trying to keep me from putting it in the side deck. But I just Shifter. I took Shifter out. I was running Shifter in the side deck at 2, but I ended up taking him out because I was talked out of it. But like Shifter, just to say no to Fiendsmith. I understand Ryziel can play through it. Obviously, Malice wants you to Shifter them, but I'm not siding this in for Malice. But the moment I see Engraver, that fucker's going into the main deck. I just don't like having to deal with deal with the Engraver if I don't have to. The recursion that I had to deal with Fiendsmith was insane. I probably lost to Fiendsmith more at this regional than I did any other deck. Fiendsmith, Fiendsmith Ryziel, I would stop the Ryziel from popping off, and then Fiendsmith with this infinite recursion would just kind of outpace me and it'd kill me. Same with the Fiendsmith Tempai. I would out-resource the Fiendsmith stuff, and then Tempai would come in and just kind of sweep me, meaning that Fiendsmith kind of just won that for them, because if I had those hand traps for Tempai, I would have stopped Tempai. But overall, just like, I think going into YCS Orlando, I am, one, not going to be playing this version of the deck, and simply because I just don't own Lubellions. I was borrowing Lubellion. I like the way this deck plays. It's really fun. It just kind of has 1,000 different ways to extend and also play around your opponent, hand trapping you. But since I don't own Lubellion, I'm going to be switching builds to the Kashtira version of the deck. I don't like the Sky Striker stuff, but I also think the Sky Striker stuff is going to lose its playability a little bit more as we move into the next format, because that new rank 4 for Ryziel is pretty cracked. So I think the Sky Striker stuff is going to be less playable than the Cash stuff. The Cash just has like really cool lines, and also Unicorn is just a mega threat in the format. Another big thing I learned is just not to tilt early. I want to say that the one bad day was what got me down, but I think just that first round 1, losing round 1 when I came in so confident, was like a big eye-opener, and I think that was like kind of the spiral. And then on top of that, what really was the nail in the coffin was one bad day just kind of stunning me out, and then I misplayed to the point that lost me the game. Was just the nail in the coffin that really sealed the deal. I need to just prevent myself from tilting and just try and keep a cool head. But overall, like, take a little more time to think out my plays. I was playing way too quick in game 2 of round 1. I had the ability to go for game, and I just was moving too quick. I was playing as if I was going first, when in reality I was trying to kill him. It was just, again, I need to focus better going into the next regional, or in this case, the YCS Orlando. There's a lot of practice I got to be doing up until then. I need more practice against Ryziel Fiendsmith specifically, because none of my friends at locals play it, -1, and I haven't had the chance to test with him. Obviously, Supreme Darkness comes out in a couple of weeks, which means White Forest is getting support. That new rank 4 is coming out. That new Link 4 is coming out. But then also we have hero support. I don't know if that's going to make hero relevant enough to have to practice against it, but overall, I need to cover all my bases. Like I said, though, I didn't really want to make this video because I just feel like it's just a big, like, negative video. I'm talking about, like, how much I got bodied going into this regional, especially when I went so confidently. I just felt like there's not a lot to talk about here. Like, the deck played fine. I played poorly, and I just kind of got so tilted to the point that I was my own failure at this regional. But at the same time, I think being able to acknowledge your flaws does help you grow, not only as a player, but as a person. But yeah, that's all I really have for you guys today. If you like the video, don't forget to leave a like on the video. But also, if you're not already and you like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content, consider subscribing to the channel, showing more support so I can continue to make videos like this one. I will be uploading some DB live stream highlights here at the end of the week, so keep an eye out for that. But with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. See ya.